You're listening to Hackers IRL. We're the people the news pretends are a single character. We are not. We pop shells, walk our dogs, fight with our printers, and somehow ship the work. This show is voicemails. Brain dumps from our side of the wire about whatever's on our minds. The line stays open. Up next, Panda from Ashura, the superheroes of cybersecurity. Here's their story.
Hey guys, it's Panda. I just wanted to talk about something today that's a little interesting. I work with a lot of AI day to day, and one thing I've noticed lately is as these tools become smarter and smarter, the frontier models, especially because I do a lot of local stuff as well. But the frontier models are doing more and more qualification of whether I should be allowed to ask what I'm asking based on who I am. Because these tools have such a good memory of what my kind of normal life is and normal tasks are. Now the checks involve, hey, does Panda need to know that information? Is he, a student? Is he an authorized tester? It's actually taking more of my personal life's context into account. It reminds me a lot of I've done a lot of lockpicking stuff over the years, and if you want to buy certain types of lockpick or elevator gear, one thing I've had to do in the past was use letterhead. I used to work for a real estate company, so if we needed something, we owned buildings, it wasn't hard to get it. But Joe Schmo trying to access elevator gear, for instance, wouldn't have the same access. They would look into that a little bit and try to figure out who that person is. If you're buying from a reputable shop sometimes. So anyway, the AI stuff reminds me of that, where instead of letterhead, it's just, do my other tasks line up? Am I doing high school homework and then trying to hack, a company, or, am I asking about, specific attack commands, but it's a normal thing for me because it's literally just part of my day to day. So anyway, I think it's a little creepy, how much these tools dig in and kind of look at us. But honestly, it's also to a degree, they need to understand us well to be able to have the context to serve us better. So, it's a mixed bag. I definitely enjoy that the models have been getting significantly better these past 6 months. But yeah, it's a little creepy at times too. So anyway, I worry about tool fairness. I wonder, right now, you can always kind of jailbreak and get around what you need to, or use a different model. That the information is still out there if you seek it out. But in the future, if you have a different standing in life than me, if you have a different job, if you're a waiter trying to learn infosec, are you going to be able to use the frontier models and, kind of top tools on the market? Or are you going to be gated in a weird way because you're not already in the industry? It's going to be an interesting world. I want to see where that goes. I really will do everything I can to push that people have access to the things that they need to learn. I think that, a lot of people, get themselves in trouble because they just don't have good things to test with. You need a target. Unfortunately, that's the reality. If you're an attacker, you need a target to learn. And yeah, I don't know. If you are going after jailbreaks, I do have another kind of thing that I've been messing with a little bit. I don't have too much information on it yet. And I don't want to say too much, but if your jailbreaks aren't as successful as you would like, look into some of the live and debug modes or fast modes in some of these frontier models. I will say that in my personal investigation, I've noticed that there appears to be significantly less safety scaffolding and a lot more built into the prompt to kind of speed those requests along. So, they advertise this stuff as like fast mode and debug mode. And it's much more expensive for kind of real-time responses. But, compute isn't free. And the way that they do that, is they're relying on the model for a lot more of the response. So, whether or not stuff is protected in that master prompt, or, there's a way to, do a more effective jailbreak, since there isn't as much additional safety scaffolding. If you run into roadblocks in the kind of normal models and have the budget for it, definitely play with those others. I'm getting there myself. I just haven't had too much of a need yet, and that's an interesting world that I'm learning more about. So another thing that I thought was interesting with the world of AI recently is I have some kind of agent-to-agent communication for some of my internal models that run, and I'm starting to see that more and more out there. So, for instance, Claude now has agent-to-agent communication in Word and Excel. If you run the plugin in any of the Microsoft products, or your browser extension or whatever else, it's actually able to communicate agent to agent, send tasks, send files, like JSON files of blob data back and forth to complete tasks. It's really cool. But this is something that, it's not just Claude doing this. Microsoft built this into their Work IQ architecture as well. There's a lot more kind of providers realizing that, you have a model somewhere that you may need to control with another model. Just like people needing to do things, across different boundaries, it's the same with our agents that are doing work for us. So anyway, this week, if you are interested, it's a little salesy, but it should be a lot of fun too. I'm doing an Assura webinar tomorrow, talking about kind of just the high-level risks of AI to businesses, and the fun thing that I'm going to do on it. I have an evil voice agent, like an evil version of my CTO that I built, that we're going to bring onto the call. It's not as convincing as I could make it, but really, it's just a fun thing we came up with for the call, to show how easy it is to build a voice agent to try to social engineer you over the phone. Not a lot of people know how easy that is nowadays. So anyway, I hope you all have a great week, and take care.
Thanks for listening to Hackers IRL. Background music is Simplicity by Macroform. If you've got a story of your own, a breach, a leak, a close call, or just something on your mind, join us. Call 904-915-HACK. That's 904-915-4225. Up to 10 minutes. Choose to preserve your OPSEC, and we distort your voice before anyone hears it. End of transmission.